Story 1. The elevator only stopped on floors that didn't exist. This happened to me in 2019 when I worked overnight maintenance at a mid-sized hospital in the Pacific Northwest. I wasn't medical staff. I didn't wear scrubs or deal with patients. My job was in infrastructure, checking temperature regulation systems, testing backup power units, inspecting plumbing, handling work orders submitted by the nurses. The hospital was old, built in the 60s. The kind of place where the wallpaper had been painted over too many times, and some of the corners never fully dried. But the bones were solid. It was big enough to feel maze-like, especially in the underground levels, but not so big that I couldn't memorize the layout within a few months. Most nights were quiet. I'd walk the halls with a clipboard and a heavy ring of keys, logging checks in the boiler room, waiting for my shift to end. There were usually only 2 or 3 of us on the overnight crew, sometimes just me. I remember the first time I noticed the elevator pause between floors. I was heading up from the basement level after doing a steam pressure check. I pressed for the 5th floor, where there'd been a request to look at a flickering light outside the psych ward. But just after we passed the 3rd floor, the elevator made this soft ding. Then it stopped. No door opened. The panel didn't light up with any number. Just a pause. Then it moved again and took me to the 5th. I didn't think much of it. These elevators were old. They sometimes jerked or stalled. I filed it away as nothing, but it kept happening. Once a week at first, then more, always between the 3rd and 4th floors. A pause floor. I brought it up casually with one of the older engineers, Ralph. He just said, "Those things always do weird stuff. I don't trust them." That's when I started checking the blueprints. Not out of paranoia, just curiosity. The hospital kept detailed physical records in a binder system. I flipped through floor plans, renovation reports, emergency schematics. I found floors B2 through 7, but the area between 3 and 4, it didn't show up. No interstitial floor, no hidden mezzanine. I even asked the facilities supervisor if there'd ever been an expansion or old level decommissioned. He looked at me for a second too long and said no. But then I found a note. One of the elevator service logs from 2 years before mentioned something vague. Unexpected halt between 3 and 4, unit re-leveled automatically. That's all. I started asking around, quietly, not pressing, just probing conversations with other night shift workers. A couple of the custodians knew what I meant before I even finished the question. One said, "You mean the phantom floor?" Another nodded. "It's like a breath. The elevator holds it in, then lets it out." They wouldn't elaborate. One nurse said she'd seen the elevator open to darkness once, just for a second. When I pressed her, she got quiet. "That wasn't here," she said. "I don't remember where that was." I tried to let it go, but I started keeping notes. Times, durations, frequency. It always happened between 2:10 and 2:40 a.m. The elevator would stop, sometimes for 3 seconds, sometimes 8, once for nearly 12. No button would work during that time. I asked the elevator contractor the next time he came in for a quarterly inspection. I asked point blank, could an elevator stop between floors? He said, "Only if it's called to a service level." I said, "We don't have a service level between 3 and 4. He blinked, then said, "Well, I didn't install this one. There was something else." More than once, when I was riding up alone, I'd get the sense that the elevator was heavier during the pause, like something had gotten in. Once I smelled antiseptic, sharp, stinging. No other floor smelled like that. That was the night I decided to bring a flashlight. Next time it stopped, I was ready. The elevator paused between 3 and 4, as usual, and for the first time the doors opened. It was pitch black beyond. Just a sliver of hallway, linoleum floor, part of a door. I stepped forward, just 1 foot outside. The floor felt soft, not quite solid. The air was colder, and then I heard something. Wheels, not rolling, just shifting weight, like someone adjusting a wheelchair. I stepped back in. The doors closed. The elevator continued up. I didn't say anything to anyone for a long time. but I started using the stairs more, and I always made sure to finish my rounds before 2 a.m. just in case. The first time I saw him was in the emergency corridor outside radiology. It was about 2:30 in the morning. I'd been sent down there because a motion sensor was tripping one of the hallway lights on and off. I was walking down the far end of the corridor when I noticed something that hadn't been there a minute before. A man in a wheelchair. Back to me. Stationary. Facing the elevator. At first, I thought maybe a patient had gotten out of a room. But when I got closer, I saw that the chair had no footrests, and the man's feet weren't touching the ground, just hovering. Still. I said, "Sir?" No response. I blinked. He was closer, same position, same angle, but maybe 10 feet nearer. I didn't hear him move, didn't see it, just closer. I called again, "You okay?" This time he turned his head, not all the way, just enough to see the edge of a face. The cheek was sunken, the skin too pale. His mouth stretched into something like a grin. He had no teeth. I didn't run. I just backed away slowly, turned the corner, pretended I hadn't seen anything. Back in the boiler room, I sat for a long time, trying to tell myself I'd imagined it. But the next night, I passed that same hallway, empty, until I blinked, and he was there, 10 feet further than before. Each night, the same thing. He never moved while I was looking, but every time I blinked or glanced away, he'd be somewhere new, always closer to the elevator, always facing it. I started timing my blinks. I tried keeping my eyes open as long as I could. One night I brought a co-worker to check. He didn't see anything. But when he left, and I turned around, the wheelchair was back, and the man was turned toward me. This time he was smiling directly. His gums were a wet, raw color, and his eyes, they didn't track me, just looked above me, as if something else was standing behind me. The elevator dinged. The man in the chair didn't enter, he didn't move. But I swear I felt the air shift, like someone had walked past me. The doors closed. I didn't look back, and I didn't take that hallway again. I eventually stopped using the elevators. I'd take the stairs, even for 6 flights. My legs ached, my lungs burned, but I didn't care because the sound had started following me. Wheels on tile. Every night, just after 2 in the morning, no matter where I was. If I paused, if I stayed still, I'd hear them, just out of sight. Sometimes echoing faintly, sometimes impossibly close. Always slow, always steady. I asked around. One of the older maintenance guys finally said something. "You ever heard of memory traps?" I said no. He nodded, lit a cigarette even though we were indoors. Old hospitals, old prisons, they sometimes get pockets. Places where renovations never finish right, where plans don't line up. He said sometimes patients died in rooms that were sealed, forgotten. Sometimes trauma seeps into those spaces. It's like they never got discharged, he said, so they stay. He told me about a janitor who quit after claiming he kept seeing lights on in a sealed hallway. A nurse who said she passed a patient in a gown, only to realize the wing had been closed for years. He told me not to listen to the sounds. Don't follow them. They're not for you. I tried. I really did. But one night, I lost time. I'd just checked the pediatrics power node, logged it, walked out. Next thing I knew, I was in an unfamiliar hallway. The walls were wrong. The floor was a kind of brown linoleum I'd never seen before. No signage, no emergency exit maps, and the air smelled like iron and ammonia. I turned around. The hallway behind me was gone, just more brown tile. Then I heard it, the wheels. They were closer than ever. I pressed myself against the wall. A shape passed at the far end, not walking, not rolling, just shifting forward. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, I was back on the main floor, sitting on a bench I didn't remember walking to. My watch said 3:47 a.m., nearly an hour gone. After that, I put in my resignation. No one asked why. They just nodded. I still think about that elevator, about the pause, about the man in the wheelchair, about the space that didn't exist Sometimes in my own apartment I'll hear it, wheels on tile, even though I don't have either. And I'll check the hallway light, and I'll wait for the ding. Story 2. The cameras showed someone else doing my shift. This happened to me in 2022. During the graveyard shift, I used to work at a university security office. It was a small campus in the northeast. Quiet. Old brick buildings, ivy creeping up the library walls. A student population that mostly cleared out after dark. The school prided itself on its history. Founded in 1894, lots of preserved architecture, underground maintenance tunnels that were no longer in use but still mapped in the emergency plans. My job was simple. From midnight to 8 a.m., I manned the central security station in the admin building, checked the feeds, logged hourly walkthroughs, occasionally responded to alerts. The building had 6 floors, but only 3 were accessible at night. The rest were locked for safety and renovation reasons. The camera system was standard, black and white night vision, fixed positions, a few slow panning units. The first time I saw it, I was reviewing footage from the night before. We always did that, skim through the cameras on fast forward to make sure nothing was missed. But something caught my attention. Around 2:47 a.m., at the front lobby camera showed someone walking in. It was me. Same uniform, same gait, even the same flashlight pattern, 2 slow sweeps left to right. I paused the video. It didn't make sense. I didn't do a lobby check at that time. I was in the server room, I remembered clearly, fixing a faulty monitor connection. But there I was, on camera, walking with purpose, stopping briefly at each camera angle, as if he knew exactly where the blind spots were. At first, I thought it might be old footage mislabeled, so I checked the timestamp overlay. It was right. The date, the time, it matched. And the footage from the server room? It showed me too, in both places, at the same time. I thought maybe someone had accessed the feed and looped it, played a prank, but this didn't look looped, it looked live. The way the version of me moved was too precise, not robotic, just aware. He glanced into every camera, not directly, just a passing look, like someone navigating a place they knew by memory. But I'd never trained for that. I didn't know where all the cameras were by heart. This version of me did. I brought it up to my supervisor. He laughed, said I was probably overtired, that I must have walked the lobby and forgotten. But I remembered the server room. I remembered exactly what I was doing. I even found the maintenance log I wrote that night. Same time, same location. So I started documenting. Every night, every 2:40 to 3 a.m. Window, the double only appeared on 2 more nights that week, always between cameras, never overlapping with the actual footage of me, never tripping the motion sensors. But every time, he paused for a moment right beneath the central stairwell camera, looking up. Once he raised a hand, not a wave, just held it up, palm out, like he was checking for a reflection. I stopped sleeping during the day. I started watching the feeds live. The strangest part wasn't just the movements, it was the consistency. He did the same walkthrough I did. Same route, same timing, just 20 minutes before. I tried trailing my own route the next night, walking 10 minutes ahead of schedule. He didn't show up. The feed was empty, but the night after, I reverted to my regular timing. And he came back. No one else on staff believed me. I stopped bringing it up, but the dread built slowly. I started wondering if he was following my patterns. How long until he stopped? How long until he changed them? How long until I was following him? The university had a small tech maintenance room behind the library archives. Mostly old routers, surge protectors, dusty power converters. We called it the subnet closet. Nobody really went in there except me and this part-time tech named Julian. One night, around 3:15 a.m., I was finishing up my walkthrough and something told me to check it. I'd passed by earlier but hadn't gone in. I don't know what changed. The door wasn't locked. Inside, everything looked normal, except for the dry erase board. We used it for scribbling down passcodes or short tasks. That night, it had one sentence written on it in thick black marker. "You're almost ready." No name, no date. Just that. The marker used wasn't one we had. Ours were red and green. This was black, fresh. The handwriting looked like mine. I didn't remember writing it. I wiped it off. The next day I checked with Julian. He said he hadn't been in there all week. He hadn't even been on the schedule. I decided to check the previous night's feed. The camera that covers the hallway outside the subnet closet showed me, or someone in my uniform, entering at 2:58 a.m. No footage of him leaving. The door never opened again. The following night I went in with a UV flashlight. There was nothing at first. But when I scanned the whiteboard again, faint traces of the same phrase glowed beneath the clean surface. "You're almost ready." The handwriting was deeper than marker stroke, like someone had pressed into the board with abnormal force. I started noticing other things, subtle things. Shift reports I didn't remember filing, walk-through logs already completed when I opened them. Coffee cups I hadn't brought in. Once, I found my locker ajar. Inside was a second name tag, identical to mine, except it was slightly scuffed, like it had been worn longer. The magnetic strip was peeled a little at the corner. I kept it. I didn't tell anyone. I started to wonder, what if this version of me had always been doing the job better? What if I was the one lagging behind? One night I left a note on the whiteboard before I clocked out. Just 3 words. "What is this?" When I came back the next night, the board was blank. But under UV there was a response. "Soon." No signature. Just the word. I stopped going in that room after that. I wasn't the only one. There were others. I started searching online, slowly, discreetly. Forums, late-night threads, buried pages on defunct university message boards. I found references. People who had experienced mirror shifts. Night workers who saw footage of themselves doing actions they never remembered. All between 3 and 4 a.m. One janitor described finding his own face on a camera he didn't know existed. Another person, a security guard in Michigan, said he started waving at the screen each night, just to see if the version of him would wave back. Eventually, it did. I started watching the live feeds obsessively. I kept the monitor on the stairwell view. Night after night, nothing. Until it happened. 3:11 a.m. I was seated at the desk. The building was silent. The motion sensors had been quiet for over an hour. Then the stairwell feed flickered. I leaned in. There I was, climbing the steps. Not the version seated in the chair. Me, live feed. I checked my reflection in the monitor, still at the desk, still, but the figure on screen moved with intent. Upward, step by step, until it reached the top of the stairs and turned to face the camera. It paused, tilted its head, then slowly, deliberately raised a hand and waved. I didn't move. I didn't wave back. I just stared. It smiled. But the expression didn't look like mine. There was too much ease in it, too much confidence. Like it knew something I didn't, like it had been waiting. Then it turned and walked out of frame. The hallway sensors didn't trigger, no doors opened, no alarms, but the monitor froze for a second, just a blink, and when it came back, I was alone again. I didn't sleep for the rest of the week. Every sound at night, every creak, every breeze felt mirrored, like somewhere else in the building another version of me was reacting, and he was just a few steps ahead. Since then, I've stopped trusting reflections, stopped watching the feeds, but sometimes in the screen's standby glow, I see a figure pass behind me, not in real space, just in the echo of it, and I wonder, what happens when he clocks in and I forget to leave? Did you enjoy the content and it made a difference for you? Click on Super Thanks and support our work. Story 3. All the clocks were wrong, but still ticked in sync. This happened to me in 2021. At the time, I worked nights as a telemetry nurse in a transitional care unit. It was the kind of floor they moved people to when they weren't critical enough for the ICU, but still needed constant vitals, medication, and observation. Post-surgery, post-overdose. elderly patients with irregular rhythms or confused speech. There were 6 of us on the shift, but I was the most experienced, so the charge duties usually fell to me. That meant checking every room every 2 hours, reviewing vitals, logging med passes, maintaining the report board. I liked the night shift. It was quiet, mostly slow. The patients slept, the halls were dim. There was a kind of rhythm to it, a mechanical beat, until the clock started drifting. At first, it was subtle. One night, around 2:30 a.m., I glanced at the vitals tablet and saw a timestamp that didn't line up with when I remembered entering the data. It said 2:19, but I'd just taken that patient's pressure maybe 5 minutes earlier. I double-checked the wall clock. It said 2:27. My watch said 2:34. The telemetry monitor at the nurse's station said 2:12, but all of them were ticking. The second hands were in perfect sync. I thought maybe it was a Wi-Fi issue, the time server glitching. Then I tried filming it, just to document. I held up my phone and did a slow pan, from the wall clock to the monitor to my watch on my wrist. The footage recorded. I played it back. At first, everything looked normal. Then, halfway through, there was a sudden flash of static. A white smear blurred across the frame, vertical, like something tall and narrow had stepped into view and vanished. Then the video jumped forward 5 seconds. No visible cut, just an absence. I checked the real clocks again. Still all different times, still all ticking in perfect rhythm. I didn't know what to make of it. That morning, after my shift, I filed a routine report to maintenance about possible clock syncing issues. They said they'd forward it to IT. Nothing came of it. But it kept happening. Every night between 2 and 3 a.m., the clocks would disagree by 5, 7, sometimes 11 minutes, but always ticked together. I started checking the medication logs and found something else. On 3 separate nights, there were vitals recorded in my login that I didn't remember taking. Blood pressure, pulse ox, respiratory, all correct ranges, all time-stamped during the non-time, that stretch between 2:10 and 2:50 a.m. But I had no memory of logging them. No memory of being in those rooms at those times. I thought maybe I'd forgotten, maybe I'd gotten too tired, so I checked the security hallway feed. We're not allowed direct access, but the supervisor let me look at one night's footage after I claimed there was a potential medication error I wanted to clarify. The feed showed me walking into room 203 at 2:23 a.m. holding the vitals cart. I looked calm, focused. The timestamp matched the log. Except I was also charting at the nurse's station at that exact moment. The station monitor caught me, seated, scrolling. 2 identical time codes, 2 places, one of me. I didn't say anything after that, but I began documenting every detail, every clock discrepancy, every unremembered log, and always during that window, 2:10 to 2:50, the loop, I started calling it, and something always felt present then, not seen, just timed. Room 207 was a corner unit. We called the man in there Patient 7. His actual name was Alan, but he rarely responded to it. Older man, post-stroke, mild dementia, sometimes non-verbal, sometimes muttered phrases that didn't make sense. But every night, every single night, between 2:10 and 2:40 a.m., he'd sit up in bed and speak. Always one sentence, always the same, but reversed, not in tone, in structure, like he was reciting words backward. Niaga Gniklau Sage. That's what it sounded like. I wrote it down phonetically the first time. The second time, I recorded it. When I reversed the audio, it was clear. He's walking again. The way he said it was slow, measured. He didn't look at anyone when he said it, just stared at the ceiling, or sometimes turned his head toward the wall, the one with no windows. He never said anything else. I asked the day nurses if he ever repeated that phrase during the morning hours. They said no. He was mostly catatonic, didn't speak much at all. But every night in that window, 2:10 to 2:40, he woke, sat up, said the same phrase, then lay back down and closed his eyes. I tried engaging with him. One night I said, "Who's walking, Alan?" No response. The next night after he said it, I asked again. He turned his head and smiled, but not at me, at the ceiling. His gums were exposed, his eyes were glassy, and then, very faintly, he whispered something I couldn't catch. I leaned closer. He whispered again, slower, "Clock, man." I pulled back. His vitals were steady. His heart rate was low but normal. I checked the other patients. 3 were asleep. 2 were out of their rooms, in bathroom chairs. But I felt eyes. Not on me, on the clock. Above room 207's door. It read 2:36 a.m. The second hand moved in a perfect circle. The hour hand was stuck between 2 and 3. I blinked. It said 2:24. I blinked again. 2:29. I looked back at patient 7. He was asleep, mouth slightly open. But one hand had fallen from under the blanket and was pointing, not directly, just angled, toward the hallway. And when I stepped out, I heard it. A soft dragging sound, like footsteps, but uneven. 1 foot dragging, 1 foot placing. The security feed didn't show anything when I checked it the next day, but one frame glitched, just one. A white blur, elongated, passing through the nurse's station. At 2:37 a.m., no one else saw it. But the next night, I stayed in room 207, the whole window. Patient 7 never moved, but the dragging sound still came, and the hallway clock was wrong by exactly 11 minutes. I started researching, quietly, privately. There were papers, obscure ones, about shift dissociation syndrome, perceptual chronostasis, the mind creating continuity where gaps exist. Night shift workers often report time distortions, delayed memory, apparitions of self. One theory said that when under routine fatigue, the brain edits time to reduce cognitive load. But I knew what I saw, and what I didn't do, yet had done. Then I found the photo. In the staff break room, there was a wall of framed images, holiday parties, staff anniversaries, group shots. One day, a ceiling leak forced maintenance to take all the photos down to protect them. They laid them on a table near the ice machine. While getting coffee, I noticed one from 2012. I wasn't working there yet. I didn't join until 2019, but I looked at the back row, and someone was wearing my uniform. Same cut, same patch, the name tag, it was mine, Claire. But I wasn't in that photo. Not then, I hadn't worked here yet. Her face was partially turned, but her hair was pinned the same way I wore mine during shift. And her shoes, they were the same canvas sneakers I had worn for over a year, except I lost them 3 months ago. I had looked everywhere, locker, apartment, they were gone. But there they were, in that photo. On her feet, the scuff mark near the heel, the frayed lace, identical. I checked the archives. No one named Claire worked at the hospital in 2012. I checked HR, no record, no hiring file, no photo ID, just the image on the wall. I brought it to the supervisor. He glanced at it. "Looks like you," he said. I nodded. He shrugged. "Spooky," he joked, but I couldn't laugh. That night I wore different shoes, but they squeaked in the hallway, so I took them off. Worked the loop barefoot. The clock still ticked, still wrong, but all in sync. And at 2:33 a.m., patient 7 sat up and smiled and whispered one more phrase, not reversed this time, "Welcome back." And then from the hallway I heard footsteps, the exact sound those canvas sneakers used to make. Soft, measured, familiar. The sound of me arriving, again, on time.